17 minutes after 7 o'clock. Corey and Tracy Grattan know how their 18-year-old son Brady spent the last 2.5 hours of his life. He was in Grand Prairie, Alberta, working as a welder, and went over to someone's house for a night of beer pong. Now, the Fredericton couple spends their days in a blur of grief, and it haunts them that they couldn't be there to stop him. They've decided to make it their mission to warn other families about the dangers of drinking games. The Grattans sat down with Information Morning's Sean Waters and shared the story of the early morning phone call every parent dreads.
I woke up about 3 o'clock that morning. It was early Saturday morning. I woke up about 3 o'clock in the morning, and I had this uneasy feeling for some reason, and I thought, gosh, what's going on? And I smelt for smoke in the house, thinking maybe there was a flue fire, or maybe there was something was going on. I just didn't know. I come out, I put wood in the fire, and I looked around the yard. Everything was fine, so I went back to bed. And about 4 o'clock in the morning, I later found out it was actually 4:11. The phone rang, and I knew something was wrong, because we don't get a phone call at that time of the morning. Something happened in my spirit. I just knew that something was wrong. And when I answered the phone, it was Tracy's mom on the other end, yeah, my mother-in-law, and I instantly knew before she even said anything that it was my son. And I wasn't very nice. I sort of freaked and said a few things I shouldn't have, and basically from then everything's kind of a blur, because time just sort of stopped for a minute. It just was like, this isn't real. I'm dreaming. I'm going to wake up. And about 10 minutes later, I had the number to the doctor, and I called the hospital, and the doctor got on the phone with me and told me exactly what was going on, that he had been found unconscious at a party. They didn't really have the details. They wanted to, they were going to put him in a hypothermia state, cool his body, and then wake him up over 24 hours. And I was hopeful. I was saying, okay, you know what, he's going to learn from this bad experience. He's going to wake up. Everything's going to be fine. But in the back of my mind, I was thinking, this must be really serious, especially if the doctor is telling us it doesn't look good. And we called our pastor. He came over to the house. We had some friends come over to the house. I got on the phone. I didn't even know what I was doing. I was calling Air Canada, but didn't even know. It's almost like everything kind of, I don't know how to explain it, but it was just almost like I needed to book an airline ticket, but I almost like I didn't know how. But I was on the phone. I was talking to Air Canada. I was crying. I was like, it's kind of hard to talk about this, reliving this, but I got them on the phone, and then they told me that they couldn't get me to Alberta that day because of the snowstorm in Halifax. And so I kind of got a little angry. I was like, what's a snowstorm in Halifax have anything to do with flying to Toronto and on to Alberta? Like, I don't understand this. And then they were saying that, well, all the flights going west are grounded in Halifax, and we need those planes. And then it kind of, okay, and now I understand. And then basically we booked the next flight that we could get, and it wasn't until 24 hours later, in the next morning at 5 o'clock, that we'd be leaving. And it was a killer, I'll tell you, like, knowing that my son was in ICU and I couldn't be there. And I just, we had friends around us, and it was just, the whole day to me was a blur. I just needed to be there. I called my best friend out in Alberta, Jeff, and I said, Jeff, you got to help me. My son's in the hospital. Can you please go and see what's going on? I was hoping that Jeff would go to the hospital and he'd say, oh yeah, Brady's fine, But that didn't happen. Jeff phoned me back about an hour later and he says, "You got to get here." He says, "You have to get to Alberta as fast as you can."
It was it's a blur really when the phone rang, because you're told it, but really unless you're there and you see, it doesn't sink in. And after we talked to the doctor, and he said that, you need to get here because we don't know how long, he's been without oxygen, when his brain, because the fellow that found him, he just turned him over and he was already blue, right? So they weren't sure exactly how bad it was, but it looked bad. I had no idea what it was until it was explained to me what beer pong was. I never even heard of that game before.
And they were using hard alcohol. And we heard, like, we were trying to go about the time. He was texting somebody at 10 o'clock that night. He was in the hospital in ICU at 12:45. So from 10 o'clock to 12:45, he would have got in his vehicle, drove to this party, consumed an incredible amount of alcohol really fast, passed out into the basement, or passed out there. They hauled him into the basement. They put him in a rubber dinghy, I guess probably so he wasn't making a mess. The ambulance was called. They came, they revived him. They took him to the hospital. He flatlined on the way to the hospital. Then they revived him again. So all of this happened in like a 2-hour span, consuming that much alcohol and ending up in ICU. So what are these kids doing is what I'm trying to figure out. And I beat myself against the wall, but wondering, what are they doing in this 2-hour period to make all of this happen? And we are hearing stories from other kids that are at other parties and stuff, and like we're getting Facebook messages and text messages of people who know people, and the stories are coming out that these kids are doing this. They're mixing Red Bull, they're mixing energy drinks, they're mixing hard liquor, anything to get a quick fix, and drugs, and they're adding drugs to this too. So it's a whole new game now. It's a whole new game, and it's a dangerous game. It's a deadly game. And I just like to bring awareness to people, because you don't think it can happen to you? I never imagined that it would ever happen to us. I've heard of stories like this and thought, oh yeah, that's somebody else. But here it is. It's hitting home now, and I'm like, my goodness. I'm just baffled. I had a friend come up to me at the funeral on Saturday, and he just looked at me in the eyes and he says, "No words." And that's the best thing anybody ever said to me, because there are no words.
It was excruciating. There's no, like Corey said earlier, there's no words. It's devastating. Seeing a piece of your baby laying there, and there's nothing you can do. And there's tubes going in and out of him, and machines making him breathe. And you just want to shake him and say, "Wake up. Like, please come back." Oh, there's so many things going through your head. You don't ever want to know. You don't ever want to know the pain of seeing your child laying there.
Did you get to touch him?
Yeah, the nurses, they were really good. They put the sides down and let me crawl in bed with him. And I just snuggled up to him for a while and cried my guts out in my heart. And so I touched him all the time.
What did you say to him?
I rubbed his feet. I said, "Mom's here, buddy. I love you." And at the time I was telling him, "Wake up, bud. You can fight this. You can come back to us. You can do this. We love you. We're here for you." I would say scripture to him. I've played a few music to him, some Christian songs, and we had pastors in, and we had people praying and people talking with him, and I would stand at the bottom of his bed and rub his feet because he loved that, or the top of his head. And yeah, there's no words.
Cannot imagine. Corey and Tracy Grattan of Fredericton are Brady Grattan's parents. More than 700 people attended their son's funeral on February the 13th at Sunset Church in Fredericton. His parents asked everyone to please come in camouflage attire or casual everyday clothes to reflect Brady's love of the outdoors. And even the pastor got in the spirit. Brady is survived by his parents and his younger brother Tyler. You can read more about his life and the Grattans' campaign against drinking games on our website. We're also going to post photographs from the family on the website later on this morning. Now, tomorrow at this time, we're going to talk to the players. We'll talk to 3 young people about the drinking games they play and what the attraction is.